Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Isabel Baker and I'm a member of the National Council of College Leaders for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. On behalf of the Foundation, welcome and thank you all for attending today's program, IBD College Edition. I hope that all of our webcast participants can see the title slide and hear me okay. If you cannot hear me through your computer speakers or headset, please dial toll-free 1-866-901-6455. The access code is 502-171-359. After the presentation, we will answer some questions from our webcast audience. Webcast participants can ask questions at any time during the presentation by entering the question in your control panel, which should appear on the top right of your screen. If we are not able to answer your question, our IBD Help Center can be reached Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time by calling 888-694-8872 or by emailing info@ccfa.org. So, a brief overview of our presentation. First, we're going to have a review of IBD, and then we're going to go over the logistics of managing college, and we'll also review resources available to help transition to college life, such as disability services and dorm life. Our speakers today include Dr. Thomas Ullman, who I will introduce shortly, and Erin Tiffany, who will share her personal story with you all later on in the program. Dr. Thomas Ullman is an Associate Professor of Medicine for the Division of Gastroenterology at Mount Sinai Hospital. Without further ado, I will now turn the program over to Dr. Ullman. All right, in the meantime, we're going to have Erin start while we resolve our technical issues with Dr. Ullman. Erin, take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Tiffany. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2005. I'm a sophomore theater and media communications double major at Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. On campus, I'm a member of Muhlenberg's Theater and Dance Association, the Jazz Singers, Catholic Campus Ministry, the show choir, and I'm the resident technician for the Office of Information Technology. So I like to keep busy. But aside from that, I'm very involved with the CCFA, and I'm a member of the National Council of College Leaders. So just a quick snapshot of my story. I was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2005 when I was 10 years old. For about 6 months prior to diagnosis, I began experiencing symptoms of extreme nausea and fatigue, and I lost about 20 pounds in a month. And we really didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't eat anything. It took a while, but we didn't notice it at first because when you see someone every day, you don't notice them changing. Eventually, a family friend came to visit and noticed something was wrong, and that's when we decided to take action. After 6 months of pin cushioning between hospital visits and GI testing, upper GI, lower GI, colonoscopy, endoscopy, anything you can imagine and have probably been through, we figured out the diagnosis of Crohn's disease, which was very confusing for us, my family and I. We weren't sure how to handle it. Fortunately, we had a connection to the CCFA. One of my dad's coworkers was diagnosed with IBD about a decade prior, and she connected us right away. It was the best thing that could have happened. We had a place to ask questions and find answers. We weren't alone. One of my first adventures with the CCFA was through the CCFA's Camp Oasis program. From my first day at camp, I realized it was a place to spend time without worry. I'd been given an opportunity to make meaningful and lasting friendships that are going to be around for the rest of my life. I can't say enough about the people that I've met through the Camp Oasis program. After 7 summers of being a camper and then a leader in training, I was fortunately able to go back this past summer as a counselor, which was really a great experience to be able to give back to CCFA and the Camp Oasis program what I got from it. My goal overall as a patient is to be able to give back to others and the CCFA what they've given me. During my time, I have done my best to become an advocate for both children and adults living with IBD, serving as the 2007 Youth Ambassador, the 2013 Honored Hero, and now as a member of the National Council of College Leaders. So I guess we can, not sure if we want to start into slides. We can do that. Great, okay, so we will start talking about college with IBD. I'm very fortunate that Muhlenberg has an absolutely great disability services. When I was applying to schools, I didn't know that that was an actual thing that existed aside from people with learning disabilities. But it's honestly a great on-campus resource for people with chronic illness. I wrote my college essay about having IBD and my experiences with the Crohn's Foundation, with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and I received a letter in the mail the summer prior to my freshman year saying, hey, we noticed you wrote about having Crohn's. Do you need our help? Which was great because I never would have thought to contact them. It's a great on-campus resource, and my parents and I met with the disabilities office the summer before my freshman year to discuss my options. We set up a plan for each class, and I was connected with the Student Health Center so I could learn what they could do for me. Next. Great, okay. I think one of the most important things to remember is that disability services is really there to support you, which may seem obvious, but I know that there are a lot of students out there who are afraid to disclose this kind of information because they're afraid they may be treated differently by professors, or if other students on campus found out, how that would affect them. I know I was personally concerned being in the theater department how casting directors might look at me different if they know. Fortunately, everything that goes down in the disabilities office is completely confidential, and they've been super helpful. They're really here to provide non-discrimination and equal access to all programs and services, regardless of disabilities. They encourage self-advocacy by connecting students with similar disabilities who are open to that, and meeting others on campus. Sorry. Let's try that. Sorry, technical difficulty. To help create a network of resources between students so that they can have other people to work and thrive with. Some of the resources that they can provide are the accommodation plans, which have been super helpful for me. Next. Great. At the beginning of the semester, I recommend meeting with your disabilities office and looking at your classes for the rest of the term. You may need different things for each class. So I know I personally need different accommodations for my 50-minute classes versus my 4-hour studio classes. There's the option for alternative forms of testing, stop the clock, extend the time, things like that, in case you need to go to the bathroom, or I know some professors have an issue with coming in late or leaving early, so that's definitely a very helpful tool to have. Aside from that, I know I asked to be able to have food and water in all of my classes, extra excused absences based on health condition, so that if I miss too many, it doesn't poorly affect my grade, and which all of that pretty much covers most of my classes. The disabilities office also can serve as a liaison between student and professors. Whenever I'm out sick for a class, I send an email to the disabilities office, and they let all of my professors know that I'm not missing for some extraneous reason, as in I just don't feel like going to class that day. There's an actual medical reason why I can't be there, and they completely back me up on it, which is great. And they also can just serve as an overall support for the student, which is something they've definitely helped me with is housing. Next. Dorm life. Living in a dorm is a really exciting college experience for most students. It can be kind of stressful as well, living on your own for the first time, and but you get the great opportunity to interact with other students. For those with chronic illnesses, it can be extra stressful. And one of the first things on your mind is, well, for me at least, it was restroom access. Registering with the Disability Center is great because they can help you figure out the best living situation for you. This could mean having your own bathroom, being in a single room, living on a substance-free floor, or being on a floor that has more quiet hours. My freshman year, I lived in a double, and actually, without asking for it, the disabilities office automatically put me in the room and my roommate in the room directly across from the bathroom. So that worked out very well. And this year, I got preferential housing, so I didn't have to go through the lottery, and my roommate and I are in a double room with our own private bathroom. It's been very convenient at many a time. For parents on this webinar, it's important to let your student inform the RA of his or her condition. This is usually required on emergency medical forms anyway, but the residence hall staff can be extremely helpful in assisting them with any special needs they may have, and they can also provide great advice and support. As with telling friends and significant others, telling a college roommate about your disease can be tricky. You or your child will be living in close quarters with your roommate for a long time, so they're bound to notice eating habits and taking medication or frequent bathroom trips. And you may even be sharing a bathroom, depending on your housing situation. Each person has to decide how much he or she wants to share with their roommate, but it's important to have somebody close to you that understands and is very comfortable with your disease just as you are. This is extremely helpful when you're going through a flare. I know that this past year I had a flare for a couple days, and my roommate ran out to Wawa and got me some good chicken noodle soup. The best way, for what I found, to talk about your disease with somebody new that you'll be living with is to just be very open and upfront, saying, this is what I have, I take lots of medication, and this is how I deal with it. It's being very calm and upfront, and they usually respond positively. Next. University Health Center. Having a relationship with the staff at your university's health center can be a great resource. It's good to consider meeting with somebody from the center before you start your freshman year of college. That way you can explain your medical situation and any of your needs to them, so that if you ever have a problem, they're there to help you, and they're aware of your medical history. If you're going to college far away from home, they can also help you set up with a local gastroenterologist. Additionally, many health centers can do lab work. I know that I need labs every 3 months, so if I happen to still be at school when each time hits that I need blood work done, I can just go to the University Health Center, they'll take care of it there, and send the reports off to my gastroenterologist. So that's something great to keep in mind. If you have medication that is shipped to you via mail order, the medication can be delivered to the health center, and they can ensure that it is stored in a proper way until you can pick it up. A few times I've needed extra medication right away, and my doctor calls it into the local pharmacy, which delivers to the school daily. So that's something to check into as well. Next. If you have longer-term biologic medication that needs refrigeration, many health centers will store them for you. For those that do not, or you definitely need it on hand in your room, the disabilities office should be able to set you up with an extra mini fridge in your room just for your medication. Many health centers also have a service that will take students to healthcare appointments. They have a shuttle that you can set up with them depending on the distance from the school. Be sure to ask the staff at your health center what other resources they have for you to make your college experience as great as it can be. Next. Many students in college don't sleep much, which happens, things get busy, and they don't also eat well. But it's important for patients with chronic illness to realize that despite what everybody else around you may be doing, it's incredibly important to keep up with your sleep and your health. Slacking on either could possibly lead to becoming sick with a flare, which is something we definitely want to avoid. Next. Before you leave for college, definitely talk to your healthcare provider about the following things. Partying and drinking are also activities that many college students partake in. Pace yourself and be sure to communicate with your doctor about these things if you're over 21. Some medications that patients on prohibit drinking. For further information, check out the IBD Inspiration post on the Campus Connection Facebook page from Senior Council Member Brandon. Next, eating well. It's important to eat well always. Sometimes that might be difficult to do in a college dining hall, but it's definitely doable. Consider meeting with the Director of Dining Services and some other staff members to discuss your dietary needs. If they do not have foods that meet your needs, many times they'll prepare special meals for you. I know personally this year I've been struggling with finding IBD-friendly foods that work for me in the dining hall, and I talked to my disability service, and they set up a meeting with me and the head of dining services so that we have a plan for the rest of the semester and going into next semester to make sure there is always something on hand that I can eat and stay healthy. Also, if you're sick and you can't get to the dining hall, many schools allow you to call ahead and have somebody pick up a special meal for you. So even if this isn't advertised, talk with the disability service about that and they should be able to set you up. As a reminder for parents, it's important that your child feels capable and confident in controlling his or her own diet. When they're off at school, it's up to them whether to grab the veggies or grab the greasy fries. They'll need to have a good idea of what foods may set them up for a flare and be aware of how the food is prepared and what it contains. Next. Managing stress. Plan ahead. It makes life so much easier. If professors know what you're dealing with before you get sick or before you need something, it's definitely helpful. If you're dealing with special needs and accommodations, it's really great for them to know that before you need to miss class or have late assignments and things like that. Everything in college is exciting, new classes, new peers, campus activities, and freedom, but it's important to listen to your body and know when you're getting overloaded and overworked. Balance is key. For me, life gets crazy a little quickly between classes, work, rehearsals, other extracurriculars, CCFA stuff, family, and friends. Make sure to get enough rest and know how much is too much. Your health always comes first. Schools have counseling services set up. So starting college is a huge transition for anyone. Adding to the stress of managing a chronic illness can be overwhelming. Taking advantage of the resources through your university's counseling center could be a great resource for you. Just having somebody to talk things through with can make handling life so much easier. Additionally, exercise is a great stress reliever, and universities many of the times have planned group activities to ensure and encourage a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Last year I took classical fencing to fill my PE and stage combat requirement, and this semester I have a dance technique and performance class which meets for 7.5 hours a week to keep my body healthy and moving and feeling good. Okay, next. So enjoy the experience. College is a great time and it's very easy to get stressed out at school, especially with the extra work that you need to deal with when managing your IBD. The experience is what you make of this, so have fun and be positive. Be proactive and prepared with your health so that you don't need to worry if you do get sick. Get involved with activities that interest you and meet amazing people. College is about expanding your knowledge, not only for a future degree, but also learning more about yourself. At this point, we have figured out the technical difficulty, and I will be turning the conversation back over to Dr. Ullman. There you go. Dr. Ullman?
Okay. Can you guys hear me? I'm hoping that there's a yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm very sorry about that before. I have no idea what went wrong. It worked out so well when we sound checked it beforehand, and then I was lost. Erin, what a great job. Very, very, very inspiring, and you presented it all so well. I'd also like to thank Isabel and the rest of the organizers at the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America, or CCFA, for setting this up and allowing me to be a participant in it, despite my technical difficulties there. So I just have a few slides really to review here about IBD, and so much of which many of you already know, either as a patient, as a parent or friend or relative. I think that would get most of you on the line. So inflammatory bowel diseases are chronic inflammatory conditions, and we generally categorize them into two types, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Ulcerative colitis is chronic inflammation of the large intestine or colon, and the itis there at the end of anything just means inflammation. So ulcerative colitis. And then there's Crohn's disease, which can also involve the colon, but can really involve anywhere in the gastrointestinal tract. The primary symptoms of these illnesses usually include bowel urgency, diarrhea, sometimes paradoxically constipation, bloody stool, abdominal pain, cramping, and some other manifestations as well. Unfortunately, as of yet, and it's the mission of the CCFA to undo this, but right now there is no known cure, but usually and most often these illnesses can be managed with medications and surgery. So next slide, please. So the spectrum of IBD is in this cartoon here on the right, and Crohn's disease anywhere in the gastrointestinal tract from mouth to anus, and can often be in a patchy and full thickness kind of inflammation. And so, not just the inner lining of the bowel itself, but it can go all the way through to the outer lining and sometimes even penetrate through. It most commonly occurs in the small intestine and the colon, which is another word for the large intestine. When there is that full thickness involvement, sometimes there can develop these things called fistulas, which are openings between two different parts of the intestine, or sometimes between the intestine and the skin. And that's a manifestation of this full thickness business. And abscesses can occur as a function of these fistulas, and that's when you get a bunch of infectious material, or really a collection of pus that's outside of the intestine, but really comes from the leakage of stool contents or intestinal contents to outside of the intestines, and the body's inflammatory response to it. Strictures can form as well, and these are really just a function of scar tissue. So as the bowel heals from chronic inflammation, a scar-like process can occur, and that can cause narrowing, lead to all sorts of difficult symptoms, usually with pain and bloating. Not that all pain and bloating, or necessarily much of pain and bloating that people feel, comes from strictures. And finally, as I had mentioned before, there can be these extra-intestinal manifestations as well. These can be eye inflammation, joint swelling, mouth sores, different kinds of skin reactions, and others as well. Ulcerative colitis, or the other typical form of inflammatory bowel disease, is a continuous superficial inflammation of the large intestine or colon. It always involves the rectum and some, which is the last part of the colon, and some part of the colon above it, and sometimes all of that colon, and some of the same extra intestinal or outside of the intestine manifestations can occur. In about 10 to 15% of patients, unfortunately, something called indeterminate colitis, and sometimes called IBD unknown, can be apparent, and that really just owes to the fact that sometimes what we believe to be ulcerative colitis later on can prove to be Crohn's disease, and sometimes the other way around as well. And it's this really uncertain area that's there, where there are features about it, either endoscopically or otherwise, that sort of confuse even the brightest physicians out there. Next slide, please. So why do people get inflammatory bowel disease? Well, we don't really know. Just like we don't yet have a cure, we don't yet have a firm understanding of what causes IBD, though we are certain about a number of factors that are involved. And certainly some environmental exposures are known to be part of the process of the development of inflammatory bowel disease. And so it's not infrequent, and I'm sure a number of you out there could tell your story about having gotten an intestinal infection, or a cold or flu, or some other kind of infection. Maybe you took antibiotics, maybe you didn't, and then that led to this persistent bit of gastrointestinal symptoms. that never went away and was your initial break with the development of inflammatory bowel disease. There are certainly some genetic factors that are involved. Crohn's disease genes are much better established at this point in time than ulcerative colitis genes. Yet the interesting thing is that the genes that are involved, we don't yet know what the functions entirely of some of those genes are. The bugs that live inside us, also known as the microflora or gut microbiota, the bacteria, and there are also fungi and viruses that live inside of all of us. And it's thought and largely theorized that the bugs that live inside patients with inflammatory bowel disease are different than the bugs that live inside of people who don't have inflammatory bowel disease. But there's a bit of a chicken and egg controversy with all that. Are the bugs there different because someone has inflammatory bowel disease, or did that alteration or difference in those bugs cause it? And we just don't know really. And then there's certainly some immune system abnormalities that are involved in the development of inflammatory bowel disease as well. Though some of these haven't been ideally worked out just yet. But we're getting there, and a lot of progress is made in these areas every day. And as we further explore each and every one of these bubbles here, we're really starting to arrive at the possibility not only of finding the cause and finding a cure, but in the meantime, at least, getting clues into what better treatments can and should be. So next slide, please. Okay, we're having trouble on the slides, I'm gathering. I see a little hourglass down there.
Here's frozen for a moment.
Okay, there we go. And so when do people get inflammatory bowel disease? It can really occur at any age. I'm not sure what the youngest or who the youngest patient is who has ever been diagnosed, but I'm certain that it's at less than 6 months. And people can continue to develop the disease into their 80s and 90s in terms of the very first presentation even. But most people who get these illnesses, either of these illnesses, do develop it between age 15 and 25. It's currently estimated that about 50,000 children in the United States have IBD, and that number seems to be growing. Okay, next slide, please. And the symptoms of IBD really do vary from person to person, and oftentimes it's not just one, and it's a multitude of things. Common symptoms, as we mentioned before, are frequent and or urgent bowel movements, diarrhea, bloody stool, abdominal pain or cramping. For children who develop the disease, as I'm assuming some of you or many of you out there did, sometimes losing your spot on your growth curve and falling off the growth curve can be an example or a symptom of the disease. And as I mentioned before, some patients do really experience a paradoxical constipation. Inflammatory bowel disease is not irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, about which there's much in newspapers, magazines, and in our medical literature as well. And many people can get both. An irritable bowel syndrome is manifested by some of the exact same symptoms, the same kinds of issues of pain and bloating and other symptoms. And that's certainly worth remembering if those are symptoms that you have, and working with your doctor and others to figure out, well, how much of this might be from my inflammatory bowel disease and how much of this might be from something else. And this can be a real challenge, unfortunately, but certainly one we all endeavor to get through. Next slide, please. So can you lead a normal life with IBD? Well, I mean, and the short answer is absolutely yes. IBD is a chronic and often and is therefore a lifelong illness for which there is no known cure. But people with inflammatory bowel disease have a normal life expectancy. Very few people die from complications of inflammatory bowel disease. Flares can be terrifically incapacitating at times, sometimes a little more mild, but they do alternate with periods of remission when there are little or no symptoms that are active at that time, and many or most patients, while mindful of their illness, live in very long remissions over time. Taking medication as prescribed and managing the disease to help reduce inflammation will lessen the risk of flares over time. And that really has become, over the last decade in particular, much more of our target of therapy, really trying to minimize the amount of intestinal inflammation that's there while supporting any other symptoms that might be a function of that inflammation. Next slide, please. And so we diagnose inflammatory bowel disease through a number of different ways, putting together the story that patients tell us, based on those symptoms and the likelihood that they could be coming from inflammatory bowel disease, whether it's Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. We generally perform physical examinations, and then we can round that out with laboratory testing and other special studies, whether those are MRI-based or X-ray based or colonoscopy and endoscopy based as well. And usually we're able to arrive at a diagnosis and determine appropriate therapy based on both the severity of the illness as well as its anatomic location. And that's really about it. I think that that's the last slide that I have here prior to our next phase here. It was initially supposed to be Erin speaking next, but she did such a great job leading off, we certainly won't make her do that again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ullman. So we're actually going to go forward to some resource slides for Erin to discuss, and then I'll lead us into the Q&A after that. Here we go. Are you ready, Erin?
Yes. So there we are. Hello, everyone. So aside from the disability services and the dining hall and friends and family on campus, there are so many more resources available to help you out. The IBD Health Center is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time at 888-694-8872 or by email at info@ccfa.org, info@ccfa.org. Or you can chat online with an information specialist directly via Answer Chat. So just visit ccfa.org for more information on that. You can also connect with other patients and engage in discussions through Campus Connection, the CCFA community website, support groups, and CCFA's Power of Two peer-to-peer mentor program. Another resource is our GI Buddy Tracker program. It is a tracking tool and mobile app that has everything you need to stay on top of managing your inflammatory bowel disease. Visit ccfa.org for more information on that. Finally, participate in some of our other educational events by connecting with your local chapter. Visit the CCFA website as well for more information on that. Next. Great, okay. Coming up on social media, you can also join CCFA for fun events on social media. Participate in our upcoming Facebook Live and Twitter chat programs. They will be next Wednesday and the Monday after that, November 19th and December 1st, respectively. Next. Also, get involved with CCFA. We have a fun time. If you're looking for ways you and your loved ones can be involved with CCFA's Team Challenge or Take Steps program. Find out more information on that on the websites listed below. Each year, I participated in the Take Steps Philadelphia program. Team Tiffany represents there every year, and it's a great day with friends and family to raise awareness and funds for these diseases. Next. You are not alone. As we move forward, we strive to find new ways to expand advocacy for Crohn's and colitis. Our newest campaign, as developed through the National Council of College Leaders, is titled, You Are Not Alone. In today's technology-driven society, here we are on a webcast, social media is one of the most powerful tools for spreading information. Through this photo campaign, we want to put a face to inflammatory bowel disease. Participants print out the sign that says, I am an IBD advocate for, and then write in how they are associated and connected to Crohn's and colitis. Mine says, I am an IBD advocate for those who have not been diagnosed yet. Others may write in, I am an IBD advocate for my mother, my sister, my brother, my friend, my coworker. These signs can be downloaded from the CCFA's website at ccfa.org and will also be available, they are available on the CCFA Campus Connection Facebook and Twitter pages. People take a picture with their sign and upload it to various social media networks with the hashtag #YouAreNotAlone, as shown below. We are encouraging people to include a caption, whether it's a sentence or a paragraph, explaining their connection to IBD. The CCFA and National College Council ask that you post these pictures on our Facebook timelines or tag us in your tweet to indicate your permission for us to share and promote these photos and stories. We hope that everyone will choose to take part in this campaign, and there are various levels of participation, so people can be involved in a way that they feel comfortable, whether it's posting a story, hitting like, share, or comment. So snap and post because we need your pictures and your input to help spread the word about IBD. Let others know that they are not alone as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this webcast and listening to us chat about the IBD College Edition. I believe we're opening it up to questions now. So if anybody has any questions, Isabel, are you going to take over here, or?
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Now it's time for the Q&A part of our program. For everyone's benefit, please keep your questions general and related to today's topic. So webcast participants can ask questions by entering the question in your control panel, which should appear on the top right of your screen. Our first question is for Erin, and the question is, do you have recommendations for finding a network of students with IBD?
Sure. I think one of the best ways to do it is to talk with the disabilities office. When I got on campus, I was looking for other people to connect with, and when I went in to meet with the disabilities office, I said, hey, I have Crohn's, I want to meet other people with IBD, and while they can't share other people's information, they can let other people know that I am open to talking, so that if they reciprocate, we can set up a meeting. So I've met a couple people through that. Additionally, I do a lot of, I try to do fundraising and educational programs on campus, so I know that putting up some of those programs and having flyers and advertising for that, I've met other people that way.
Thanks, Erin. So our next question is for Dr. Ullman, and the question is, what should we do if we have an emergency, such as a blockage, while we're on campus?
So whenever you have any kind of emergency, you need to seek medical attention quite rapidly. And a blockage or an obstruction could be a partial obstruction, could be a total obstruction, and so you need help right away. So I think the thing to do in that situation would be to call your campus health services group immediately. If you have a doctor in the area that you've already lined yourself up with, you should call him or her. But if you don't, if you can't get help fast enough through either of those two vehicles, then you really need to consider getting yourself to an emergency room. Bring a friend with you. If it's completely severe, call for an ambulance. But last thing you want to do is not seek out help.
Thanks, Dr. Ullman. So our next question is for both Dr. Ullman and Erin, and the question is, how do you manage transitioning between doctor visits in college and GIs at home?
Erin, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm probably the best to answer this, but I don't actually have a GI on campus or by myself because I'm about 45 minutes from my home. So I stay in communication with my GI at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Aside from that, it's just been, if I needed to get blood work done on campus, they then send the results of that to my GI, and we follow up at our next appointment. Or I just, if I'm having an issue, I'll just call him on the phone and check up with him that way.
And so from my perspective, you know, I have a number of college student and college-aged patients, and we all don't mind sharing, we being gastroenterologists, and whether these are adult gastroenterologists or pediatric gastroenterologists, and when to make the transition from one to the other is always a difficult question, and there's no great one answer for that. But having two doctors involved is really generally a fine and very easy thing in this day and age of easy communications. It's just not a problem to have two doctors helping to take care of you, one in college and one back home, and knowing who to call and how to communicate really isn't much of a challenge at all. And as Erin mentioned, arranging for blood tests when those are appropriate at one site to get fed to a clinician on another in another geographic location really isn't, blessedly, isn't all that difficult in this day and age.
Thank you guys so much. So another question for Dr. Ullman is, when a child falls off the growth curve, what is the likelihood that they will fall back into the curve during times of remission?
Well, growth is a tricky thing, and I should point out that though I'm familiar with growth curves, that's more as a consumer with my own children. But I am an adult gastroenterologist, and so I don't often track folks on the growth curve. They generally come to me fully grown. But I can tell you that prolonged periods of time where the disease is active is what leads to falling off the growth curve, whether it's weight or height or both. And the important thing is really to drive the situation toward a remission and minimize the amount of inflammation that's there. And very often that results in, over time, in getting folks back on their appropriate spot on the growth curve.
Great, thank you. So our next question, which can be for both of you, is how do you arrange medicine to be filled in your college town, and then where do you store it, such as in a refrigerator, if one is not available in your dorm?
Sure, I can start with this one. So most of the medication I'm on, I've been on for a long term, and I use mail order. So I actually just kept my mail order being sent to my house, and it's in large quantities. So the next time I'm home on a break, or if I need it right away, my parents mail it to me, or I pick it up when I'm home on break and bring it back with me. So I just stock up on my mail order medication because it comes in large quantities. I've no problem storing it at school. I have a small, not so small, box that I keep all my extra pill bottles and things in that I just keep in my room. I know that if you're not allowed to have an extra mini fridge in your room specifically for medication, and you're not comfortable putting it in your other fridge, which is understandable, then talk to your disability services. I know the disabilities office at my college actually has their own fridge to store certain people's medication, so you can check in with them, or also with the health center, the fridge there, because they most likely will be able to store it for you.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it all, Erin, and you covered all the possibilities, either in your room with a refrigerator that's there, or at student health services or the disability office, and just having some element of planning that in advance, and not being caught with a mad rush when one is down to their last vial of Humira, as just an example, and just staying on top of it and having a bit of advanced planning. And there's almost always a solution at hand, and there are many different opportunities, as Erin mentioned.
Great, thank you guys. So the next question is for Erin, and the question is, how do you talk to professors about your IBD needs in class?
Sure. So the Disability Services actually has it set up pretty nicely, where I meet with them first, and I get a plan set out for each class, written up paperwork that I then give to my professor. So I know for my physics class, I have it set up that I need to take, I can take as many bathroom breaks as I want, be able to leave and come back into testing if I need to go to the bathroom, and I can have water and food in class as needed, as well as absences that won't negatively affect my grade because of health. And at the beginning of the semester, I get a copy of that paperwork as signed by the disabilities office that I have to give to my professor. So I go up with my little envelope and I'm like, hi, I have this paperwork from the disabilities office. Basically, it says that these are my accommodations because I have Crohn's disease. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. And then they usually respond saying, yes, I know what that is, or I have no idea what you're talking about. And then you say, okay, well, if you have any questions, this is how it affects me. I'm very open to talking about it if you have any questions. But I just wanted to let you know that this is what I'm dealing with.
Thank you. So our last question is for Erin, and the question asks, do you have any recommendations on what type of fundraising events to do on campus that will help raise awareness as well?
Oh, great. Okay. So the National College Council has a program called Program in a Box, which is basically a PowerPoint and interactive communication that you can put on your campus that talks about living on campus with IBD. I think that's a great way to do it, to open the conversation that way. I know I personally, Muhlenberg is a very big theater school, so I took the information from that and turned it into a play that we performed last semester and had an information talk back with the audience if they had any questions, to sort of raise awareness that way. When it comes to fundraising, I think a great way to do that is having raffles and IBD-friendly food bake sales and things like that with information, whether it's in the form of somebody there to talk about it or pamphlets and papers as well that you can give out at those things, or to do a raffle that you hold the ticket at an information session to encourage people to attend things like that. And I think just being generally open on your campus about talking about it is a great way to go about it. You can talk to your disability services as well for any help with fundraisers or events and things, and they're usually great about that.
All right, thank you so much, Erin. So some extra points are that you can also get involved with Team Challenge and take steps, even if you're not a college student. So to wrap up, I'd like to thank Erin and Dr. Ullman for your insightful presentation and for your helpful answers to our questions. If your questions were not answered, you can call CCFA's IBD Help Center Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time at 888-694-8872 or by emailing info@ccfa.org. An archive of today's program will be posted on CCFA's website within the next 48 hours at www.ccfa.org/resources/webcast. On behalf of CCFA's National Council of College Leaders, thank you for joining us. Good night.